I mentioned in a previous video that probably my favorite author of them all was George Orwell. Is George Orwell? I still read and reread his novels, essays. I particularly like his long essays. And one of the things that I've noticed, probably all of my life since I even started to read him, is the fact that he's in many ways a poster boy of the, what one might loosely call the libertarian right wing. In that they see him as an anti-communist, anti-totalitarian, attacking collectivity, preaching for freedom, saying that government is in and of itself bad, and essentially whatever government does is wrong, or almost certainly going to result in undesirable consequences. Now, what irritates me, I suppose, about all of this is that view of George Orwell is nothing short of Orwellian. He was not a right-winger. He was a Marxist. He was a dissident Marxist. In other words, he was powerfully anti-communist at a time when to be called a Trotskyist was essentially a death sentence in some quarters, and definitely a political or career death sentence if one wants to be associated with mainstream, or wanted to be associated with mainstream left-wing opinion in the non-communist world. He did not preach against big government. I think that people are mistaking him in that case with Aldous Huxley in Brave New World and Brave New World Revisited, where Huxley definitely did attack the very idea of too much government. Orwell wrote many books, essays, attacking capitalism as the source of so many of the problems of his age. The road to Wigan Pier was practically an endless rant about the absolute evil of free market, laissez-faire capitalism, and a plea for the British to come to their senses and to try socialism, not communism as such. Fabian socialism was the term that was in vogue at the time. In other words, Labourite socialism, left Labourite socialism, at least the way it was then. And he wasn't blind to the shortfalls of socialism. He wrote all kinds of things also in the same book, The Road to Wigan Pier, criticizing all the mistakes that socialism was almost bound to make if it became the dominant creed in British politics. Predictions which turned out to be true, actually. But he was saying, though, at least this kind of socialism will be better than the capitalism that it will edge out. And it turns out that he was right. The 1930s kind of capitalism that essentially turned the entire world into a listless pile of unemployed or underemployed, thwarted people had to be overcome somehow. And he essentially said that capitalism, the way that we understand it now, is the problem, and the only thing that we can do is to expect government to do something, and i.e. democratic government that is answerable to the ballot box, to do something. Now, today's right-wing conspiracy theorist, or again, this is kind of a caricature, the term that I'm using, tend to ignore that part of Orwell's writings. They just tend to talk about Big Brother, i.e. the government. They tend to talk about newspeak and doublethink and all this kind of thing, the thought police. And they tend to use that against what they see as creeping leftism. Whereas Orwell would have said that all these things, and communism in general, have nothing to do with left or right wing. In fact, it's a perverted kind of left-wingism, which is actually the antithesis of what he understood real leftism to be. And I wonder why No one else seems to notice this, that George Orwell was actually a lefty. He fought in Spain against fascism, although he would have said as well that he was also fighting against international capitalism, which he saw as a hand in glove with fascism. Now, that's another discussion that can go on forever, whether or not fascism and capitalism were two sides of the same coin. But that's the way he saw it, at least. And he fought in the Partido de Obreros Unificados Marxistas, the PUM, a Marxist group on the Republican side in the Spanish Civil War. All of this seems to be forgotten by the people that like to have him as their poster child, arguing against big government and Barack Obama's healthcare system or proposals even. It's all, as I say, it's Orwellian in its emphasis. It strikes me as often the same kind of idea as the use of the teachings of a first century Jewish quietist philosopher, i.e. Jesus Christ, to justify the Spanish Inquisition, to justify the mass murder and totalitarian control of an entire society. Orwell was not a right-winger. Orwell lived and died on the left. I don't really put myself on the left, although there's an awful lot in Orwell that I completely agree with, and I just like to mention that I hope that there are plenty of other people out there that see Orwell for what he actually was. Thank you.